You know, the economy, it might just swing Labor's way before next year's election. Don't want to scare the Liberals, but you have a look. Unemployment is very low, and today inflation fell by a lot, from 5.4% to 4.1% in the last 3 months of last year. That's not far off the target of 3% maximum, and then you can start hoping interest rates will go down again. Now, the Prime Minister's also banking on voters forgiving him for being a liar, for tearing up the stage 3 tax cuts. He promised again and again before the election, and to change it so that people over $146,000 a year get a lot less, and people under that get a little more. And now it's defying the Liberals to oppose what is done.
They are saying, Peter Dutton and David Littleproud is saying that they want higher taxes for 12 million Australians.
Joining me are Cameron Milner, former Chief of Staff to Labor leader Bill Shorten and now Director of GXO Strategies, and Michael Costa, former New South Wales Labor Treasurer. Michael Costa, inflation much lower, things are looking up for the country and for the government, or not?
Well, I think that was good news today, and we should be thanking Phil Lowe. I mean, this is a confirmation of the strategy he pursued in the face of criticism from this government, if you remember the amount of pressure he was under, but he stayed the course, and we're seeing the results. I mean, look, since Milton Friedman, everybody's known that monetary policy takes a long time to work, but it does work, and that's what you're seeing. Unfortunately for Labor, I think they're in a difficult position. If they now think that they're going to get away with some sort of budget expansionary program in the face of these, they could find themselves wedged, in fact blamed for a delay in interest rates coming down. So I think they're in a bit of trouble from a policy point of view, even though the news is good from an economic point of view.
Well, and then there's, Cameron, then there's a broken promise, right? Yes, it's a broken promise, but there are two issues here, aren't there? The one is that the lying, right? The lying is one thing. Even if you like what they've done, there's the lying. And I just wonder, now that they've done this, might they break a few more promises?
Well, I think they can, and obviously once Albo's actually broken the key promise of stage 3 tax cuts, I think everything's now on the table. I think negative gearing, capital gains tax, franking credits, these are all Labor policies from only last year. You don't
seriously think they'll break the promises not to do those things as well?
Well, they broke the sacrosanct promise of not touching stage 3 tax cuts.
Right.
Having done that, there's nothing holding Labor back now to actually look at all the other Labor policies that have been on the table for a long time and have all been gone.
You're not recommending this, are you?
I'm saying Labor has to have a conversation about the taxation system. I think people like Jim Chalmers needs to actually have a reform agenda, and Albanese should let him actually have that conversation with the Australian people.
Yeah, but Michael Costa, that's all very well if you then bring it to, like John Howard did the GST. You go to the next election and say, this is what we want to do. You don't implement it before without a mandate, do you? Or is in fact Anthony Albanese going to get away with breaking a promise?
Well, look, he may well get away with breaking this promise because of the way the numbers are. But look, I think the issue here is how Dutton responds. I think he's leaving his run too late, to be frank, and they're all over the place. He needs to commit almost immediately to not oppose these cuts, as we both said last week. And I think he needs to then, put down a very firm policy on tax indexation to wedge them, to say not only that, these lies mean that we should have tax indexation, and reinforce the lies with a concrete policy that leads to some sort of benefit in the long run. But Cameron's right about one thing. If I was Dutton, I'd be running around now saying that they are going to get rid of negative gearing, they are going to introduce capital gains tax, they are going to get rid of franking credits, they are going to have another attack on superannuation. He can run an almighty fear campaign, and Anthony Albanese's credibility may well allow him to get away with the tax cuts, but he won't get away with all these other issues. So I think he's in real difficulty if the opposition gets its act together.
Well, the problem with that, though, let them, wave them through, is that both parties went to the election promising stage 3 tax cuts, and the Liberals can hardly start throwing stones at Labor for breaking a promise if they then now break their promise. But still, they're in opposition. Maybe they've got more latitude. But Cameron, you again wrote a very, very good column in the Australian newspaper today. It's really become an agenda setter. You said that Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer, and the Prime Minister barely talk to each other, can barely talk to each other. What's that about?
Well, it's all about the fact that Jim Chalmers is a reformer and he wants to set a Labor agenda, and he's being held back and handcuffed by the Prime Minister, who's all about photo ops and selfies. Jim Chalmers is a real reformer and a great Labor treasurer, and he's ambitious, not only for Labor, ambitious to be Prime Minister, definitely, but Albanese just wants to be a time server, and that's the big difference. Chalmers wants to reform and change and be a Labor treasurer.
So make all these other broken promises that you're talking about.
He's talked about other conversations that the Australian people need to have as well.
Well, I don't know. What do you think, Michael? I mean, Jim Chalmers, does he really want to then start saying, look, by the way, I'm going to break all these other promises because I'm a reformer? I mean, good changes or not, I don't know if that's democratic.
Well, look, I know that both Cameron and Jim are from Queensland and maybe they're mates, but I see him actually as a pretty mediocre treasurer, to be honest with you. I mean, he's not opposed the energy reforms, and they have structural implications for the economy. He's not opposed Tony Burke's crazy IR policies. I mean, this is what treasurers should be doing. And in addition, I mean, leaving aside the tax issue at the moment, there is an argument for tax reform. And, surely he can't be in a position where he says, look, I didn't support the last set of changes. This is my policy, which is even taking more money off people. I just think that that's pie in the sky. I think that the Albanese will be there for as long as he wants. I don't see Chalmers taking over.
Well, I don't know. We're looking forward to the next news poll with huge interest, but we shall see. Then there's, of course, the Dunkley by-election that could cement him in place. I don't know. But Cameron, meanwhile, the political staff of the Albanese government, right? The staff of the government ministers and the MPs, they clearly don't think the tax cuts are going to be enough because they've put in an outrageous pay claim, 20% over 3 years. That's more than almost double what public servants are going to get. And they also say they don't want to work quite as hard. They don't want to be on call, quite so often, all that sort of stuff. It seems to me that working for a socialist government seems to make them think they could take even more money that could have gone to the poor.
Well, some staff work really hard, and we know that, Andrew. Absolutely work very hard.
I've worked there.
But Albanese's staff obviously looked at the fact they were going to miss out on their state tax cuts and put a 20% pay claim on the table.
Well, I don't get it. I mean, Michael, really, I tell you what, this is one industrial dispute that the Liberals will be cheering on. They'll be saying to the to Albanese staff, strike, strike, strike. They'd love that.
Oh, look, I think it's an ambit claim, but remember, both your Prime Minister and your Treasurer were staffers. That is the conveyor belt into politics, and don't be surprised they support it.